And I see here also on the flyer, it reads, your mission is to stimulate or increase the awareness in humans that we can all have the innate wisdom, knowledge, and ability to co-create a benevolent and loving environment that meets the needs of all beings, including the animal, plant, and mineral kingdoms. The founder of our nonprofit, which, if you didn't know, we're basically, environmental, educational. We provide guidance and education for people to become more aware. And we start with the environment. So the founder and I were talking the other day, his name's Dwayne Hepner, about how actually people can create weather, and the environment that they live in. The black holes in space are unconscious, basically unconsciousness of people. They're becoming bigger, the black holes, because the unconscious agreement to the demise of the planet's becoming more so. The weather actually can be, parts of the world, there's different weather patterns, etc., but they have a real relationship. And I imagine the humans to the weather, and I imagine the fairies are the in-between, the elementals are like the in-between of that kind of relationship, and they can access and maneuver things certain ways. So it's very interesting how this all plays into, like you say, it's co-creating a benevolent and loving environment, and that's kind of what we're doing here. Is we're trying to help people to see where their agreements are. Are they agreeing to something benevolent, or are they agreeing to their own demise? And it seems so far that they're not waking up to their agreements. And maybe the fairies can help with this. I don't know. Are they? What is their ability to actually? I mean, I see them as kind of encapsulated in a certain dimension. Can they actually do anything in the physical to affect the physical in terms of what's going on in the world today? Can they offset it in any way, or is their power limited to where they're at?
No, they're actually, they do work with all of us here and all the plants. And I know when you're thinking that they're separate from us, but actually they're not. I mean, I'm sure when you start thinking about vibrations and dimensions that actually we are all one. We're all in it. We're multidimensional beings anyway, and it just depends on where we focus our attention. And right now, as humans, we are focusing a portion of our multiple dimensional self, in this physical body. So that other portion is, right there, and that's why they're like right there all around us. I mean, you could have the fourth dimension, the fifth dimension, the sixth, seventh, all up. I've heard there's been more than 50 dimensions. So, and by that, I mean, I call it a dimension, but it really is a vibration or a frequency. Just like sound, a frequency. Sound can get so high no one can hear it. Maybe the dogs can. So it's the same kind of concept. But yes, they are, the fairies and the elementals are here to help. That was one of the things they were designed for and asked to help in conjunction with everything else. And yes, they can, I think when asked, because we don't get anything unless we ask. And if we ask for their help, if we ask for them to work with the weather or circumstances, I do agree that we're all able to control it if we just concentrate on it and raise our vibration to a more benevolent frequency. That's where we can do it.
Yes, and as a matter of fact, we have one of our, we call her a seer. She can also see into the other dimensions. Claudia from Corpus Christi, and Sandy's here too, but she's awful sick, so she can't talk. But Claudia can share something about what she's been doing with. I guess she did something with the hurricanes and different things. She's worked with elementals in her own way too, Mother Earth, and maybe Quadi, you can comment.
Yes, sir. Oh, it is such a pleasure to meet a fairy lady. Oh, how wonderful to know that you're here helping us. My question is, when you work with the elementals, the wind, the water, the earth, the fire, I see them as conscious entities and interact with them on that level. Speak to them. You don't have to do this. You don't have to burn here. Was working on the Amazon fire in the rainforest. To me, that was the most dastardly crime on this planet, along with the California fires, all the people that were affected by that terrible calamity. Do you talk to them, the elementals exactly? Do you talk to them or interact with them? And how do you convince them, I'm going to say, or get them to recognize what they're doing, that it is affecting the humans, and to please stop?
Yeah, you know what? I do talk to them, and it's interesting you meet that. Trees are very, very prominent in our, on Earth, and have a huge duty. And all different trees have their own reason why they're here. Obviously, the fruit trees are to give us fruit and all that. The pine tree is to help. And a lot of this I learned, by the way, if you've ever read any of Robert Shapiro's books. He's a medium, and he has a lot of entities that come through him. And he has a whole book just on animal souls speak and plant souls speak. And the pine trees are to encourage, the palm trees are to encourage new babies to continue to be born, because as we are born, once we get through that veil and we go, some of them want to say, oh, I don't know if I want to do this. So it's to encourage them to continue all the way through the 9 months and to be born. But yes, they speaking to, and I speak to trees. I have a particular tree I call the fairy door tree, and it's funny when you stand there, you just put your right hand on it to speak. That's the one, a giving hand, and if I want to receive for them, then I put my left hand on. But yeah, I'm like you. I believe they are all entities, and they're all energy. And if we just try to work with them and request and ask, I believe that they're more than willing to help whenever they possibly can, unless they have another duty to perform by a higher source.
Yes, I'm kind of known in my family and friend circle. Yes, I'm a tree hugger, because my first experience of connecting with a tree on a sentient level was so awesome that ever since I've been changed. But now I've kind of moved on to the mushroom entity and how much it has changed the earth. Your thoughts on that would be appreciated. And again, wow, thank you. It's so nice to talk to you.
Oh, yes, same to you. Yes, we'll need to connect off the radio program.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Yeah, the mushrooms, I hadn't thought about that. I'd have to concentrate on energy of the mushrooms. But yeah, every type of grass, every type of weed, everything has a reason for being here. Everything in the ocean, everything in the air, the birds. So, yeah, I'll have to ask the fairies about the mushrooms.
Yes, there's a gentleman in Oregon who works with mushrooms in different varieties, and he gives a lot of information on how they connect underground with the different plants that are around them. Like if a plant is thirsty and needs water, it can tell the mushroom underground, I need water, and they will somehow get water to that plant. It's amazing how they are able to function so rapidly. And again, it's all done with connection between the plants and the mushroom, the root system especially. The more you get into it, the more you learn fascinating information about how plants talk to each other and why some plants do this or why some plants do that. And thank you.
That's correct. The fairies thank you, too.
Such fun.
Yeah.
Now, my understanding of plants and animals that they don't have an imagination like we do. Is that they're more instinctual? Is that correct, or how do you see that?
Well, I don't know that I wouldn't say that they may not have an imagination, but any type of plant or entity in the plant kingdom or even the animal kingdom, they have a specific job to do. So usually that's all they're concentrating on. If they're let's say a young tree, you would probably not interact with a young tree very much because the young tree is just concentrating on growth and, getting its nutrients and finding its way, just like maybe a little child. So the ones to converse with as far as, trees are concerned would be the older ones because they're more stabilized. They've heard their stories from the plants and the animals and the ants and the worms and all the thing around, and they're more settled, so they are more inclined to, converse with humans that are willing to do that. So, it's. I forgot your question. What did you say? I got off on a tangent.
Imagination. They seem to operate on instinct and nature.
I think it's more that. Yeah, I think it's more that they have a specific job to do, and that's what they're for, and that's all it consumes most of their thinking and their time. So I'm sure that if they wanted to, they could, but then they would have to abandon some of their other duties because they're a more simple thought process. We as humans, we've got this amazing brain, and they are truly amazing too. But I think they're just a little bit more limited in what they're thinking and what their abilities are, because they're there for a certain purpose, and that's pretty much all they have time for.
Yeah, the reason I bring that up is because one thing Claudia mentioned before about the fires, and I'm not sure if you're aware of it, but a lot of these fires are caused by directed energy weapons, the geoengineering of the weather. And if the elementals could somehow, offset that in their own way by bringing up a wind or something, rain, if they could, it is their survival too. Is that something that they have the power to do? That's the first question. And then the second question is, well, I'll ask it later, but you go ahead with that one. Do you want to address that?
Do they have the power to do it? I would say that just like any particular entity has its own power, and I'm sure that there are powers out there that would be just what they do. If asked, they would help divert some of that energy. You can't stop it, but you could definitely divert it into a more benevolent situation. That would be my opinion on that. And
could I ask Claudia what were the results of the hurricane? I know you were working with the hurricane at one point. You had an interesting take on that.
Talking to the last hurricane that came through, I live in Corpus Christi, Texas, so we're prime target area. We've had more than one, but over the years I've learned more about the entity itself it has a consciousness, and most of the time they're usually angry. And so talking to them to calm them down and to find out what the problem is and to see if it can be corrected. That way they resume back to their source of being, okay, I'm just wind. I'm going from one place to another. I'm bringing air or fresh air to another place. So for us, or for me, I worked on the last hurricane that came through and put a dome over this area, a clear dome. And what was noticed on the weather report was that the hurricane seemed to skim over this area before it finally dissipated and dissolved back to its original state. So somewhere along the line, the wind accepted that and was able to relax and resume its original job of just blowing from one place to another. In this area of Texas, it's really interesting to see how much nature is involved in this particular zone. One of the things that we get every now and then, and it's been on the news about the Saharan desert dust. We get a lot of it. I mean, it covers the cars, it's on the street, in the sidewalks, everything. When you sweep, you're sweeping Saharan dust, and it eventually is dissipated by a rain shower or something to bring it back to the ground. But for me, talking to the hurricane that came through, I asked it to stop and to see the benefit of doing nothing to harm the humans, and that it would help the earth especially. I don't like to interfere in what the plant or wind or fire or water system is doing, because I know that it's for a purpose, and so that they have a job to do, like you had mentioned. The wind is needed sometimes to stir up, but it's caused by, in my opinion, the negative forces on the planet that are bent on destroying and destructing this planet. And so I cannot stand by to see it do that. The humans have just as much right here, and they don't need to be assaulted by negative forces that have their own agenda, and it's not in our best interest. When Dwayne talks about supporting the all-natural environment that supports us, to me that's right on. That's exactly what we need to do, is to support the environment. And there are so many companies and industries that are putting poisons out, poisoning our air, our water, our food. That needs to stop. But we as a people have to meet halfway and take a stand, step up, do something. And there are a lot of people on the internet that are doing things now. I recently saw a story about the skyline in New York City that was an overhead railroad line that was no longer used, and they turned it into a park with trees and plants and flowers for each season. And it is quite a thing. Over 3 million people have visited that, and you can sit on the park benches and watch the trees wave in the wind. It's awesome. There's a young gentleman who was a young boy who now plants trees, and he's inviting everybody, plant a tree, help this planet, do something. So thank you for showing up and telling us and teaching us about the fairies and how to talk to them and work with that kingdom. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.